I've studied magnetic fields my entire career, from the quantum spin of electrons to the massive dynamos and planetary cores, from the twisted magnetic ropes in solar flares to the incomprehensible fields around magnetars. I thought I understood the fundamental principles of how magnetic fields are generated and maintained in the universe. I was wrong. The discovery came from NASA's magnetospheric multiscale mission, the MMS spacecraft. These 4 satellites were designed to study Earth's magnetosphere, the protective magnetic bubble that shields our planet from the solar wind. But 3 days ago, mission controllers redirected the spacecraft array toward 3I Atlas as it passed within range. What they measured was impossible. Literally, physically impossible, according to everything we know about how magnetic fields work. I was giving a lecture at MIT when I received the encrypted message from Dr. Patricia Rife at NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center. Patricia is a legendary space plasma physicist, someone who has spent 4 decades studying planetary magnetospheres. She doesn't exaggerate. She doesn't sensationalize. So when her message read, "Drop everything, we've detected something, violets, Maxwell's equations," I knew this was serious. I excused myself from the lecture hall and called her immediately. What she told me made my hands shake. ATATs was generating a magnetic field with a strength of approximately 15,000 nanotech at a distance of 1,000 kilometers from its surface. For context, Earth's magnetic field at ground level is about 50 nanoteslus generated by a liquid iron core the size of the moon, churning and convecting over billions of years. A talus is a comet-sized object, perhaps 5 kilometers across at most, with no apparent internal structure capable of generating such a field. But the strength wasn't even the most disturbing part. The magnetic field's geometry was completely, fundamentally wrong. Every natural magnetic field we've ever observed around planets, stars, even exotic objects like pulsars, follows certain rules dictated by Maxwell's equations. They tell us that magnetic field lines form closed loops, that they have no beginning or end, that certain configurations are forbidden by the mathematics of electromagnetism. 3I Atlas was violating those rules. I flew to Goddard the next morning and spent the day examining the data with Patricia and her team. The MMS spacecraft had made multiple passes near 3I Atlas, measuring the magnetic field from different angles at different distances, using the most sophisticated magnetometers ever built. "Look at this," Patricia said, showing me a 3-dimensional visualization of the magnetic field structure. "See these field lines? They don't form closed loops. They appear to terminate at the surface of the object. That's impossible. Magnetic monopoles, isolated north or south poles, have never been observed. They're predicted by some grand unified theories, but we've never found one. Yet, 3I Atlas appears to have regions that act exactly like monopoles. I stared at the visualization, feeling a sensation I can only describe as intellectual vertigo. If 3I Atlas contained magnetic monopoles, it meant one of two things. Either our understanding of fundamental physics was incomplete in ways we hadn't imagined, or this object was using technology so advanced it could manipulate magnetic fields in ways that seemed impossible to us. Dr. James Chen, a theoretical physicist from Princeton who had joined our analysis team, ran calculations comparing the observed field to every known mechanism for generating magnetism. "I've modeled everything," he said, his frustration evident. "Permanent magnets, electromagnets, plasma, dynamos, even exotic scenarios involving superconductors and quantum Hall effects. Nothing comes close to explaining this. The power requirements alone are staggering. To generate and maintain this field configuration would require energy densities we can only achieve in particle accelerators, and even then, only for microseconds. This object is sustaining it continuously, but there was more. The magnetic field wasn't static. It was dynamic, changing in structured, almost purposeful ways. I've witnessed some extraordinary things in my 50 years as a physicist. I've seen particles appear from pure energy in accelerators. I've watched the detection of gravitational waves from colliding black holes. I've even had the privilege of contributing to theories that describe the birth of the universe itself. But what I observed yesterday afternoon from the Solar Dynamics Observatory has left me speechless and frankly terrified in ways I never imagined possible. Let me start with what happened. At 1437 Universal Time, the Sun released a massive coronal mass ejection, a CME. These are not uncommon. The Sun regularly expels billions of tons of plasma into space, whirling charged particles across the solar system at speeds exceeding 1,000,000 miles per hour. We've been observing CMEs for decades. We understand their physics. We can predict when they'll hit Earth and prepare our satellites and power grids accordingly. This particular CME was classified as X9.3, a massive event, one of the largest we've observed in years. The energy involved was staggering, approximately 10 nh 32 AGs, equivalent to 1 billion nuclear bombs detonating. Simultaneously, the plasma cloud expanded outward from the Sun at nearly 3,000 kilometers per second. A glowing wall of superheated particles that would take about 18 hours to reach Earth. S-orbit under normal circumstances. But these were not normal circumstances. Atlas was positioned almost directly in the CME's path. We knew the plasma cloud would hit the object. They calculated the trajectory. Precisely what we expected was what happens to any comet or asteroid caught in a CME. The charged particles would interact with the object's magnetic field. If it had one, strip away surface material, possibly creates spectacular visual effects. It's dramatic, but predictable. What actually happened defies everything we know about physics, energy conservation, and the fundamental laws of thermodynamics. I was on a video call with Dr. Michelle Rodriguez from the Goddard Space Flight Center when it happened. She's a heliophysicist, one of the world's leading experts on solar activity and space weather. We were discussing the CME's potential effects on 3I Atlas when her face suddenly went pale. She was looking at real-time data from the Solar and Heliospheric Observatory. She shared her screen, and what I saw made my hands grip the desk. The CME had reached 3I Atlas. The plasma cloud, clearly visible in the ultraviolet and X-ray imagery, had engulfed the object completely. But instead of passing around it or scattering off its surface, something impossible was happening. The plasma was being absorbed, not deflected, not dispersed, absorbed, pulled into the object like water down a drain. We watched in real time as the CME's energy signature began to change. The plasma that should have continued racing outward toward Earth's orbit was instead concentrating around 3I. The object seemed to be creating some kind of field. We could see the distortion in the particle streams, funneling the solar plasma directly into itself. Within 20 minutes, virtually the entire CME had been consumed by an object no more than a few kilometers across. "That's impossible," Michelle said, stating what we were both thinking. Where is all that energy going? Where is all that mass going? That CME contained billions of tons of plasma. You can't just make it disappear. But it wasn't disappearing. It was being absorbed. And as we continued to observe, we noticed something even more disturbing. Atlas was changing. The object was growing brighter across multiple wavelengths. It was emitting energy signatures we'd never seen before. Most alarming of all, our gravitational measurements showed something that made no sense whatsoever. The object's mass was increasing. I immediately contacted colleagues around the world. Within an hour, observatory capable of observing 3I Atlas was pointed at it. The European Space Agency, NASA observatories in Chile, Hawaii, Australia, everyone confirmed what we were seeing. The object had absorbed the CME's energy and matter, and it was somehow converting or storing it in ways that violated our understanding of physics. Dr. Thomas Chen from Caltech ran emergency calculations on energy density. If 3I Atlas absorbed even a fraction of that CME's energy, he told me over a scrambled line. We're talking about energy densities that should only exist inside stars or in the cores of nuclear weapons.